Rolika Roach, and welcome to the live Council of Ministers press briefing for today, Wednesday, August 15th, 2018. At this time, I invite the Minister of Education, Culture, Youth and Sport, the Honorable Wycliffe Smith, to address you. Minister Smith.
Thank you very much, and good morning, members of the press, colleague ministers, members of the Department of Communication, people watching or listening. Good morning, Sir Martin. On Monday last, thousands of students and hundreds of teachers and staff made their way back to school. I too made my way to several schools, accompanied by the Secretary General of my ministry, Ms. Sharmina Powell, and the Chef de Cabinet, Peter Gittens. And our intention was to greet the principals and teachers and to wish them a wonderful and a successful school year. At some schools, principals insisted that I also greet the children in the classrooms, which, of course, I gladly did. As a teacher myself, I remember how exciting it was to welcome a new group of students every year to my class. I was impressed by one class, Group 8, former 6th grade, where the teacher had already begun to have her students talk about their goals for the school year and which secondary school they wished to go to after they completed their primary education. She also asked them what they wanted to become. And the teacher was proud to be able to point out to me the one student, a young boy in the class, who aspired to be a teacher. Well, you can imagine that I surely encouraged him to stay with his dream. After our rounds, the Secretary General and I reflected on the number of male teachers we encountered, and sadly enough, we were able to count the number of male teachers in the schools that we had visited on one hand. Now, I'm very happy for all our female teachers, but I really want to encourage our boys and our men to consider teaching as a career. And why? Teaching is a very noble profession. It is a profession where you have the ability to impact lives and consequently to impact your very society. Also, our young boys need to see and need to be able to interact with positive male role models. I am encouraging girls and boys, young women and as well as young men, to consider teaching as a career. You will be granted a study financing if you qualify, and most assuredly, there will be a job waiting for you when you complete your studies. Talking about the shortage of teachers, about 2 weeks ago, I told you that in total there was a shortage of about 44 fully qualified teachers. Well, I'm glad to be able to let you know that the shortage is down to approximately 20 teachers, and I'm sure that my appeal for teachers did help to reduce the shortage. I got calls and emails, and I was able to direct these queries to the various school boards, who of course are the legal entities that hire teachers. I even got a query as far away as Iran. But the awareness of the teacher shortage has caused that 6th grade teacher that I just told you about, has caused her to encourage her students in 6th grade to consider teaching. To me, this is where and how we start to recruit teachers. If teachers consistently do this, we are bound to see an increase in the teaching corps in 5 to 10 years. What can the ministry do immediately to bridge the shortage gap? The ministry will grant temporary dispensation to persons recommended to the ministry by their school boards. During my visits to schools, I was pleased to see how well the principals and teachers were organized and had things under control. Also, they were very optimistic and looking forward to a successful school year. Of course, There are still some schools where construction is still going on, but it is being done in such a way as not to cause danger, noise, or disruption to the education process. With regard to construction and repairs, I would like to let you know that the Council of Ministers last week approved for repairs to be done in 6 of our public schools. The repairs would entail what we call urgent repairs, which include fixing roofs, doors and windows, plumbing, and electricity. As you might know, government just can't start repairs like that. It has to go through a tendering process. So very soon you will see in the media advertisements concerning the tendering of repairs in several of our public schools. I would like to remind you of the 4th Annual Sports Open House, set to take place on Saturday, August 25th, 2018, at the Raoul Illich Sports Complex, under the name #SportsMatter. This year, for the first time, the creative industries will also be participating in the Sports Open House. The main goal of the open house is to educate the community of the importance of sports and to stimulate everyone in the community to participate in at least one sport, as well as to promote clean eating and healthy living. The open house is also to bring awareness, not only to sports, but also to the creative industries and all that these industries have to offer. The 4th Annual Sports Open House and the first Sport and Creative Industries Open House are a collaborative effort between the Ministry of Education, Culture, Youth and Sports through the Department of Sports and the Department of Culture, in collaboration with the National Sports Institute, the NSI, the Division of Educational Innovations, DEI, the St. Martin Sports Olympic Federation, the National Sports Organizations, and the creative industries. Next week, I'll give you a more detailed briefing concerning this very special event. But remember the date, Saturday, August 25th, 4th Annual Sports Open House and the first Sport and Creative Industries Open House at the Raoul Illich Sports Complex. In the news this past week, and even this week, you might have heard of the problems related to the teachers, the principal, and the school board of the Preparatory Secondary Vocational Education, the PSVE. I would like to assure the public and the parents that my ministry is talking to the relevant parties, trying to seek a solution in the interest of some 300 students who are attending that school. For me, as Minister of Education, Culture, Youth and Sports, the goal and interest of all parties concerned should be ensuring that the students receive quality education, which is the reason why these students are in that school. So I will be reaching out to the relevant parties to seek a solution in the interest of the students. This past Sunday, I was at the airport to say bon voyage to 11 students who were going off to Tallahassee. These first-time study financing recipients were enthusiastic and positive about their future. Among them were students who were going to study psychology, finance, medicine, and accounting, among other studies. And we certainly wish them well and will be following up on their progress twice a year. Where were you on September 6th, 2017? I'm sure that most of us would answer, I was sheltering from Hurricane Irma and I was praying for her to go away as quickly as possible. Yes, we all have memories of that destructive hurricane. We all were affected, in one way or another. Our country suffered severe destruction on September 6, 2017. But you know what? We are resilient, and we are bouncing back and building back better and stronger. And that's what we do in St. Martin. In the first place, everyone, whoever you are and wherever you are, you can commemorate September 6, 2017. Come September 6th, that's 3 weeks from now, on Thursday, September 6th, the government is asking everyone in the country to reflect, just for 2 minutes, on the day Hurricane Irma struck St. Martin. Reflect on where you were before the hurricane. Give God thanks for life and for strength. Celebrate the strength and the resilience of St. Martin. And here's how we're going to commemorate September 6, 2017. On Thursday, September 6, 2018, 3 weeks from today, at exactly 9:06, 6 minutes after 9, we would like for everyone to stop whatever you're doing and reflect or commemorate. Why 9:06? The 9 represents the 9th month, that's September, and the 6 represents the 6th day of the month. So on September 6th, at 9:06, let us commemorate. Stop what we're doing. So if you're at work, you stop working for 2 minutes. If you're driving, stop driving for 2 minutes and reflect. We would also like to capture those 2-minute reflections and share them with St. Martin. Leading up to the silent 9:06, you will be hearing more about how we can make those 2 minutes on September 6th as meaningful as possible. That's it for now, and I'll await any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Minister Smith, for your opening remarks. At this time, I invite the Minister of Finance, the Honorable Perry Geerlings, to address you. Minister Geerlings.
Thank you, Ms. Roach. Good morning to the press corps. Good morning, St. Martin. And good morning, my esteemed colleagues. I have a couple of points that I would like to share with you briefly. As you probably have noticed in the newspaper this morning, there was a groundbreaking ceremony. Thank you, colleague. A groundbreaking ceremony of APS yesterday in the Cahill area concerning the Oryx Affordable Home Project, whereby 62 so-called affordable homes will be constructed. It will take like 24 months. And but to me, the importance of that occasion was that, you know, where the government and the private sector or semi-private sector can come together and create possibilities for St. Martin, the economy, but also the social welfare of the people of St. Martin. I think the Oryx project is one of the examples. Just to let you know, the property on which this project will be constructed is a donation done by the government of St. Martin. Because of that, the project management was able to reduce or keep the price affordable in that sense. However, during that ceremony, I made it clear also to APS organization, of which I'm very proud of where this is concerned, that fine, housing to the value of 250,000, the most expensive one, can be affordable for a certain segment in our society. But maybe it would be also a good idea to look at possibilities to initiate social housing for those that really need affordable housing in the truest sense of the word. It's a challenge that I placed at the APS board, and they, at least they acknowledge that, and they are surely going to look into possibilities to do so, because that is the core of an exercise like the one yesterday. But again, the government partnering with the private sector or the semi-private sector is key in making projects like this successful. Then I'm happy to announce also to the public in general, yesterday in the Council of Ministers meeting, we finally approved the financial statements, the overdue financial statements for the years 2013 and 2014, and they are now ready to send to Parliament for approval. We still have the financial statements 15, 16 and 17 to take care of. We are aiming to finalize 15 and maybe 16 by the end of this year, but the first quarter of 2019, I'm sure that we will be able to deliver all those in arrears financial statements, and that will allow us to be back to a normal situation whereby we can also start taking care of the financial statements of 2018. So, and then thank you to my team at the finance department for this, the hard work that they're putting in with the limited means that we have at our disposal. Having said that, it's also important for you to know that where the 2019 budget is concerned, we have a little surplus, or a moment that we are not busy with it because we are busy with the quarterly reporting to the CFT. Now, the quarterly reporting demands from our departments full and 100% attention, and that means with the limited resources, the human resources, and the time that we have at hand, we can only focus on the quarterly reporting right now. I'm mentioning this in the hope that my good friends of the CFT and our sister in the Netherlands are listening. This is what we have to deal with, and this is how we have to do it. And there is no other way about it, but we are working, step by step and one project at a time. But just for you to know, just in case that someone would like to give a political spin to it. Then, in closing, I also would like to mention to you that the liquidity support that was approved for the first quarter of 2018, the 32.6 million, is close to be deposited in our account. We had to initiate a budget amendment to do that. That is because when I received a letter from the State Secretary Knops, that letter was accompanied by an agreement that I needed to sign. I cannot sign those agreements. That was an exercise that also took place with the first tranche that we received. It caused a lot of delays because we were supposed to sign something that we cannot constitutionally do. In order to be able to sign that agreement, we needed to do a budget amendment in which was also placed the mandate for me to sign that agreement. The Governor's Cabinet and the Council of Advice were really instrumental in getting this done within a week, just to show that if all of us would like to progress as a country and that we all want the same thing, that we can do things in a speedy manner. And I would like to thank very much the Cabinet of the Governor and the Council of Advice. The situation right now, the advice from Council of Advice was sent to the Governor yesterday, and that is being prepared to go to Parliament for approval. Hopefully by next week we can have that done, and then the week after, so by month end, we should be able to receive the funds, and then we are most probably covered till the end of the year. The end of the year can be November or December, but also October, depending on our financial situation, how it develops in the coming months. That is it for now, and I thank you very much for your attention, and I'm open for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister Geerlings, for your opening remarks. The Minister of Tourism, Economic Affairs, Transport, and Telecommunication, the Honorable Stuart Johnson, and the Prime Minister and Minister of General Affairs, the Honorable Leona Romeo-Marlin, are both present this morning, however, will not be making any opening statements, but is available for any questions the media may have. At this time, I invite the Minister of Justice, the Honorable Cornelius de Weever, to address you.
Good morning. Thank you, Ms. Roach. Colleague ministers, the media, I'd like to welcome Mr. Grimika Wilson from 721 News. It's always a pleasure to see new faces and the media growing. It's important that our message gets out there. I know last week I made quite a statement, but it wasn't covered. But that's quite okay. That happens sometimes because the media has a choice what they put in their paper. But anyway, I'd like to give a brief update on what's happening at the police station, for example. Post-hurricane reconstruction at the police station has started. We have received some direct funding. On Friday, we received close to 1.3 million guilders, and that was allocated. So we're going to be using that for the following projects as well. Is the replenishing of the vehicle fleet. We're expecting 10 new vehicles, and that should bring our fleet back up to 50%. So we still have some ways to go, but we're going to get there. We're also going to upgrade the uniforms in the workforce. The dispatch center is also being worked on, and the reinforcement of the police headquarters and substation. As you know, you may not know, but some in the media were present. This morning at 9:30, we signed 9 camera observers contracts, a 3-year contract to ensure that the camera project is a success. I want to thank them for their patience and their commitment, and I look forward to working with them. I expressed that during my introductory meeting with them, and I look forward to them doing the best and ensuring that St. Martin is safe and secure in order to have prosperity on this island. We also received a container from the Dutch police training facilities, and I want to say thanks as well, because there's a lot of material that has been provided to us, and they will be used at one of the locations that have been identified, because we're also going to be training the personnel. The 15 recruits will start, and in 2019 we'll have a second group of 20. In 2019 we'll have a second group that will start as well of 15 as well. And we also have those who have achieved the BAFPO but need to do the BPO, the Basis Politieopleiding. That's going to happen as well. So we're getting it back up and running, and we ask the public, of course, to again help us help you. Those are my statements for this morning. I thank you.
Thank you, Minister de Weever, for your opening remarks. We now go over to the question and answer session. Lyndon Brown of BCN TV, you have the floor.
Good morning to the people of St. Martin and the wonderful ministers. Ministers, I can assure you all that the people of St. Martin love to hear the voices. And today I'm going to start with Minister of Education. Congratulations to you. Okay, there have been an ongoing controversy with the school. You mentioned it in a while. The principal of that school is presently at work and willing to do her job. How soon this saga, in your view, will come to a conclusion?
Thank you very much, Mr. Brown, for your question. As I said in my opening remarks, I am aware. I'm on top of what's going on, talking to all the parties concerned, and it's difficult to say how soon or give a timeline, but I can assure you that in the interest of education for all of those students, my ministry is very concerned and will do its utmost to try to bring about a resolve. So that's as much as I can say at this time about it, and I'm looking forward to having this matter resolved as quickly as possible.
Thank you, Minister Smith. Stephen Cerillion of PJD2 Radio, you have the floor.
Thank you, Excellencies. Good morning. My question is for the Minister of Finance. Last week you spoke of the appointment of a representative of St. Martin on the board of CFT. How close are you to achieving or realizing this appointment, and who is the person in question?
Thank you for the question, Stephen, and thank you for reminding me, because that is one of the points that I forgot to mention this morning. In the Council of Ministers yesterday, we approved the candidacy of Mr. Russell Vogels, known to the people of St. Martin, former Minister of Finance, Lieutenant Governor. His background is in financing, and it's somebody and it's very important this time, because that you know the political dynamics of not only of country St. Martin, but the political dynamics within the Kingdom of the Netherlands. And in my humble opinion, without trying to badmouth talking the CFT, but I get the feeling that the CFT is more and more becoming or having also a political agenda, and we needed somebody strong who could represent us in that body to at least make sure that St. Martin gets what they need. And by saying that, you see, the CFT has always been a body that is like the auditor of how we are doing our financial management. I always, from day one that I was meeting them also in The Hague in my former function, try to initiate or pushing them into a direction to also assist us and come with solutions, you know, to help us out how we can reach the goals that were set in the Kingdom Law. And the relationship is getting better and better and better, but I'm kind of wary with the new appointment that the Netherlands made to the CFT in the form of Mr. Kamp. So we needed somebody who can stand up to somebody of that magnitude. But thank you again for that question.
Thank you, Minister Geerlings. Gromiko Wilson of 721 News, you have the floor.
Thank you. Good morning to the Council of Ministers. I don't know if everybody on the Council of Ministers know that like 2 days ago, there was an incident with me, the owner of 721 News, that get arrested. My questions, I have some questions, and I want to direct it to the Prime Minister and then to the Minister of Justice. To the Prime Minister, I would like to know from your side where the government of St. Martin stands towards the international laws. When I say the international, based on the United Nations and the European agreement that Holland signed, that automatically that we, the 6 Dutch islands, falls under those agreements on freedom of press, the execution of the media houses doing their work. Because the incident with me, interrupting me doing my work, is going to put St. Martin on a blacklist the moment I file my complaint and my concern to the international body toward the violation of this agreement that Holland signed. Because I'm not going to take it easy as it is, because maybe you all don't know, but my company is the Real Paparazzi BV. I have a CRIP number, I have a KVK number according to the laws of St. Martin. And every individual that lives on the island need to respect the international laws that the mother land, when I say the mother kingdom, then the kingdom signs that every partner have to obey to it. And nobody can abuse of the system. So I would like to know from your point as the Prime Minister, where are you aware of those, and where the government stands towards that?
Mr. Wilson, we do have 3 rounds of questions, so your next question can be directed in the second round. So
I have a problem also, Prime Minister, with this, because this is a very important issue had happened to me today. So I think I want to ask you to bend the rules towards to my questions I have and my concern, if it's possible. It depends on your council what you decide. Thank you.
Thank you, Gromiko Wilson, owner of 721 News. Your question in regards to where does the government stands as it relates to international laws, the UN, European laws about freedom of press, and that St. Martin is basically a signatory being part of the kingdom of such. I can state that because we are within the kingdom, we must respect all international laws regarding the freedom of press. So that is where the government stands as it relates to freedom of press. We're part of that that treaty, those laws, and we must respect them as well as any law that is under international ruling. So that is my response to your question. As it relates to asking further questions, I believe that we should stick to what we do every day here. Every Wednesday, there's a first, second, and third round of questions. We will follow that. Should you need any more time, you can always make an appointment with my person or whichever one of the ministers, and you will be duly heard. But because of the time, let us just stick to what we usually do on every Wednesdays. But you will have an opportunity to ask more questions.
Thank you, Prime Minister. Andrew Dick of the Daily Herald, you have the floor.
This question, good morning to all ministers. Minister Smith, concerning the situation at PSVE, I know that the situation started prior to the summer. So why did it take your ministry so long to actually pay attention to the situation and only coming in now to come to some type of solution?
Thank you, sir, for the question. Our ministry has been following the developments all along, and we have now begun to mediate. We have been following them.
Okay.
Thank you, Minister Smith. Lyndon Brown, you have the floor.
Okay, Minister Selin, question to you. The APS, there was a groundbreaking yesterday. The question is, what in it for the people of St. Martin, and what is the criteria for the people of St. Martin to own their house from that project?
Thank you, Mr. Brown. If I may answer the second part of your question, the criteria, I would like to refer the people to the APS offices to obtain those criteria. Yes, I understand there are over 300 applicants already for only 62 homes that are being constructed. But for that information, you really need to go to the APS offices. Then to your first question, first part of your question, what is it, or what is in it for St. Martin? First of all, it shows the resilience of our country. The fact that we can undertake a project of this magnitude under these circumstances says a lot. As the one of the directors of LICO mentioned yesterday, Mr. Snape, that they are here for so many years and that they are now able to compete to international companies to undertake such a big enterprise or such a big project, says a lot for St. Martin. I guess that by doing projects of this magnitude, that the feed of this project, the subcontractors, everybody that commits to the project, by suppliers, you name it, will have an effect for the economy, and hopefully in my area also for the tax income. But also to the outside world, it shows that, you know, what we are made of, and that we, even though the situation is as it is, that we can still undertake innovative projects, because this project will have some new constructions methods being applied to it. So, I'm very happy with this project. Thank you for your question.
Thank you, Minister Geerlings. Stephen Cerulean, you have the floor.
Minister of Education, the shortage of teachers have been decreased somewhat down to 22 now. How many teachers have been called out of retirement? B, and whether or not they are on contract. C, how long is the contract for?
Thank you, sir, for your question. I don't have those figures as to how many teachers were called out of retirement. I spoke to a school board recently about that, and one of the problems is that once teachers are in retirement and they go back to work, their salaries that they receive causes quite a lot of tax adjustments, and that would be something that would need to be looked at, because they get in a higher pay bracket, and the taxes that would be deducted from them is much higher. And so a lot of teachers who are in retirement do not want to go back to work because of that situation. So that is something that we would have to look at, and maybe with my colleague, the Minister of Finance, see if there's solutions with that in that regard.
Thank you, Minister Smith. Gramika Wilson, you have the floor.
To the Minister of Justice. The Dutch police assist St. Maarten, Corps Police, Corps Police St. Maarten. Sorry, after the Hurricane Irma. Can you explain, are there their own force as a second police force in St. Maarten, or they came under the wing and operating under the Corps Police in St. Maarten? Because during my incident, a major Koeiers told the Dutch police to remove the shackle from my hand. And he clearly stated to him, because I told him, je weiger opdracht van je meerderer. You are busy not complying with the order from your superior. He clearly said in Dutch that Koeiers, who is a local police officer, falls directly under KPS, is not his superior. And he was in the highest rank. He was the one over the entire incident, the crime scene. He was in charge. So that means he's not. Are the Dutch people, the Dutch police that's here, have their own agenda? Did they change the constitution of St. Maarten or something, that the police force of Holland have their own? I said that they are their own body. That I want to know. And all victims of police brutality cannot get the name of the police officer. So right now, we are trapped because I don't know what the name of the two police officers. I asked the acting prosecutor, and she told me she can't give it to me. So I am sitting right here, don't know. I only have 2 pictures of them. It's like their name, but I need their name. I don't know if you can, not tell me now, but provide me it after. That's my question. My question is, if the police, the Dutch police, what's the agreement, and if the Dutch police are their own force as a second police force in St. Maarten? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wilson, for your question. There is only one police force, that's KPSM, St. Maarten, and they all fall under the responsibility of Chef Calderon. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister De Weever. Andrew Dick.
This is for the Minister of Tourism, Stuart Johnson. Now, Minister, as far as the country's website, it has been down for a week now. Are you aware of the situation, and what is, of course, your ministry doing to get the website back up as soon as possible?
Thank you, Mr. Dick, for your question, and it's good to see you at press briefing. I haven't been seeing you at press briefing since my oath taking as minister. But to answer your question, indeed, I am aware of it. You know, many of the inherited concerns and issues that the ministry has now continued to address and mitigate. So I have met with the Tourist Office Interim Director, Ms. Mei-Ling Chun, and we have finalized the advice, and we are now proceeding to make sure to mitigate that issue that was found in terms of the website not being active and get it up and running within short.
Thank you, Minister Johnson. We now move on to the final round of questions. Lyndon Brown, you have the floor.
To Minister Dr. De Weever. To the question for based on media, do you aware of the criteria of the media? What's the status of a media personnel? Meaning, should they have certain identification in the public?
Thank you very much, Mr. Brown. There is a media law that's, I think it's been circulated. It falls under the responsibility of the Ministry of Education, Culture, Youth and Sports. And I think it's something that we need to finally address. It's been buzzing around for a long time, but I think, and I strongly believe that it just needs to be reviewed, if it needs to be revised, and then it needs to be implemented. And stop wondering what the criteria is and all that stuff. For me, it doesn't matter, but the law is what matters to me. And if we can do it that way and regulate it, then I think that would solve many of the questions. Thank you, Mr. Brown.
Thank you, Minister De Weever. Stephen Cerulean.
Thank you. Since my colleague still has a few more questions, I'm going to yield my time, pass it on to him.
Thank you. Gramika Wilson. So you have your question from Mr. Cerulean, and then you can ask your other question.
To the Minister of Justice. The uniforms from the Corps Police St. Martin, when are we going to see them back on the road? Because this yellow, bright blue thing is working on my nerve. And I think there's a lot of more people. So maybe they can give us that. You mentioned something about the uniform there. So I don't know how fast it's going to be. The plates, the license plates, all the Dutch vehicles that came from Holland have a yellow license plate. By this point of time that we're in, these Dutch plates supposed to be under St. Martin license plate. So all the police vehicle, custom vehicles, all vehicles that came under the European license plate need to change and have a local insurance inspected by the local inspector company. Where are government right now so far with them? Because you cannot be controlling with those vehicles to people, and yourself is violating the traffic ordinance. And the last questions, then I don't have to ask no more. Can you confirm to me, because we came out with a story that the chief custom, Mr. Antonio Doran, was he present at the border control whereby he was arrested on the French territory for being intoxicated, and they did pass it over to the Dutch authorities, and they did drop him off and never report his incident in the police report? Can you confirm for me? Because I have a rumor that he's saying that he was in the office, but 721 News is the most reliable news website. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wilson, for your questions. The uniforms should be coming in September. The exact colors and shapes, I'm 100% sure of. But overall, we always talk about having blue on the street. We can't say we want to be safe and not see them. It doesn't quite happen that way. So we have to make sure that we just understand that they have a job to do, just like we have a job to do and you have a job to do, and respect each other's time, space, and energy. Number two is the change in the number plates. I believe that as government, as a police, we have to lead by example. Respect is a two-way street, and if we try to hold some kind of double standard, it will send the wrong message. So I am very much aware, and everyone will be following the law as they're supposed to. Thirdly, the situation with Mr. Duran. Mr. Duran is on leave. Let me first state that. Secondly, I have asked for a report of the incident. but right now I cannot make any further comments. The request for additional information went to both sides, both the Dutch side as well as the French side, so that I will be able to get an objective report on what needs to be done next, or if anything needs to be done. So again, we have to be very careful. I believe, Mr. Wilson, as well, we are busy with the complaints committee for situations like yours as well as others, and that committee is being put in place so that we do have somewhere where the citizens of our country can go and report anything, and we want that independence of that committee to be able to address these issues, because you can't just rely on internal affairs, for example, because we need to have that independence and that objective body to address any kind of complaint. Thank you very much, Mr. Wilson.
Thank you, Minister De Weever. And Judith, you have the last question.
This minister again. This question is again for the Minister of Tourism. The airport, the board situation. I know that the last was that you asked them to resign, and also they're going to be placed on non-active duty, and some other members will be coming in. How far is that process, and how soon will we see the change of board?
Well, thank you again, Mr. Dick, for your question now in this final round. The process is going through the Corporate Governance Council. Once that process is completed, then, of course, as shareholder, we will proceed with all the necessary recommendations that the council puts forward, and, of course, address any other concerns. In the coming days, we're also going to keep a shareholders meeting, and the intention of that shareholders meeting, of course, is to again, hear some of the grievances from the members of the supervisory board of the holding company, and then, of course, the meeting will outline other arrangements going forward. But thank you for your question.
Thank you, Minister Johnson. Honorable ministers of the council, members of the media, radio listeners, and online viewers, this brings us to the end of the live Council of Ministers press briefing for today, Wednesday, August 15th, 2018.